"Excuse me, miss. Please, I'm so hungry. Can you spare me anything to eat?" Emma didn't hesitate. She reached into her canvas bag and pulled out a pack of sandwich and a cold bottle of water, handed it to the man sitting on the hot sidewalk and smiled. "Here, sir. I hope this would be enough for you." The man took it with both hands like it was liquid gold. He drank the water desperately, with little drops dripping down his chin, then looked up at her with tears in his eyes. "God bless you, miss. And that one small act of kindness?" It was about to drag her into a world of secrets, manipulation, and a family she never asked to be part of. Because the moment she walked away, that man made a decision that would completely rewrite her future. And trust me, when you find out why he chose her, you won't recover. Join me as we dive into this powerful story. But before we do, my ex-girlfriend spat on my face and said I will never get to 2,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. I want you and I to prove her doubts wrong. Kindly click on the subscribe button below, like and share this video to your friends and families. Thank you. Now let's dive in. The scorching Atlanta sun beat down on Peachtree Street like a hammer on an anvil. Marcus sat on the cracked sidewalk, his back pressed against the warm brick wall of a closed grocery store. His clothes were tattered, deliberately so. Dust covered his worn shoes, and his gray beard was unkempt. To anyone passing by, he looked like just another homeless man trying to survive another brutal summer day. But Marcus Wellington was far from homeless. He was one of the wealthiest men in Georgia, owner of Wellington Enterprises, a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire that stretched across the entire Southeast. His name was on buildings, his signature on contracts worth more money than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. Yet here he sat, disguised as a beggar, watching people walk past him without a second glance. Some looked away quickly, uncomfortable. Others pretended he didn't exist. A few dropped coins into the cup he'd placed beside him, but most just hurried by, lost in their own worlds. Marcus had been doing this for 3 weeks now, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. He wasn't here for money or attention. He was here searching for something far more valuable. He was searching for a woman worthy of his son. His son, David Wellington, was 35 years old, successful in his own right, and completely closed off to the idea of love. David had built walls around his heart so thick that Marcus feared his son would die alone, bitter and empty despite all his wealth. And Marcus blamed himself for part of it. David's mother, Catherine, had left them when David was only 10 years old. She'd walked out one morning without warning, leaving only a note that said she couldn't live that life anymore. Marcus had tried to shield his son from the pain, had poured money into therapists and boarding schools, had given David everything except the one thing a child needed most: the assurance that love wasn't always abandonment. Now, 25 years later, David cycled through relationships like business deals. Beautiful women came and went, but none of them touched his heart. He kept them at arm's length, never letting anyone close enough to matter. And whenever Marcus brought up marriage or settling down, David would shut down completely. "Dad, I've seen what love does," David had said during their last argument about it. "Mom loved you once, remember? Then she left. Every woman I've dated has wanted something from me. My money, my connections, my name. Love is just another transaction, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise." Marcus had tried to argue, but how could he? His own marriage had failed spectacularly. Catherine had been unhappy for years before she left, and Marcus had been too busy building his empire to notice. He'd failed as a husband, and in doing so, he'd taught his son that love was unreliable. But Marcus had lived long enough to know the truth. Real love existed. He'd seen it in his own parents' marriage, in the way his father had cared for his mother through her final illness. He'd seen it in his business partner's family, in the way ordinary people sacrificed for each other every day. Real love was out there. It just had to be found in the right place. And that's why Marcus was sitting on Peachtree Street dressed as a beggar. Because he'd realized something important. Wealth attracted the wrong kind of people. When you were rich, everyone wanted something from you. They smiled and said the right things, but their eyes always held calculation. How could you find genuine kindness when everyone knew who you were? So Marcus had decided to become invisible, to strip away the money and the name and see who would show kindness to someone who had nothing to offer in return. That kind of person, he reasoned, would be the right kind of person for his son. For 3 weeks, he'd sat on the street corner and watched humanity pass by. He'd learned a lot about people in that time. Most weren't cruel, they were just indifferent. They had their own problems, their own struggles. A homeless man on the sidewalk was just part of the city's backdrop. Easy to ignore. But every now and then, someone would stop. A middle-aged woman had once given him her lunch, a fruit salad she'd been carrying home from work. A teenage boy had emptied his pockets of all his change, mumbling, "I hope this helps, sir." An elderly couple had stopped to ask if he needed anything, genuine concern in their wrinkled faces. These moments restored Marcus's faith in humanity. But none of these people were right for David. The woman was married, the boy was too young, and the elderly couple, well, they were elderly. Marcus was beginning to think his plan was foolish. Maybe genuine kindness wasn't enough. Maybe he needed to just accept that David would remain alone. But he'd committed to doing this for 1 full month, and he had 1 more week to go. It was on a Thursday afternoon, the kind of hot, humid day that made the air feel like soup, that everything changed. Marcus had been sitting there for nearly 2 hours. His back ached, his throat was dry, and he was beginning to regret his choice of location. The sidewalk was absorbing heat like a storage battery, and even in his thin, worn clothes he was sweating. That's when he saw her. She was walking down Peachtree Street with a purpose, not the leisurely stroll of a tourist or the frantic rush of someone late for work, but a steady, determined pace. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dark curly hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore simple clothes, jeans and a plain blue t-shirt, and she carried a large canvas bag over one shoulder that looked heavy. What caught Marcus's attention wasn't her appearance. It was the way she looked at people. As she walked, her eyes moved from face to face, really seeing them. She smiled at a mother struggling with a stroller. She nodded politely to an older man. And when her eyes landed on Marcus, she didn't look away. She stopped walking and stood there for a moment, studying him. Marcus held his breath, wondering what she would do. Then she walked over to him, and up close, Marcus could see her face more clearly. She had warm brown eyes, a smattering of freckles across her nose, and a gentle expression that held no pity, just genuine concern. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Are you okay? You look like you might be overheating." Marcus cleared his throat, remembering to stay in character. His voice came out raspy, weak. I'm very thirsty and hungry, miss. Haven't had anything in a while." She didn't hesitate. She immediately swung her canvas bag around and unzipped it. Inside, Marcus could see it was filled with bottles of water, small packages of crackers, granola bars, and other simple foods. "Here," she said, pulling out a bottle of water and handing it to him. "Drink slowly. It's still cold." Marcus took the bottle with both hands, genuinely grateful now despite this being part of his test. The water was indeed cold, and when he opened it and took a sip, the relief was real. He drank more than half the bottle in long, desperate gulps, and some of it dribbled down his chin. When he finally stopped to breathe, he looked up at her. "Thank you, miss. God bless you." She smiled, and it transformed her whole face. "You're welcome. Do you need anything else? I have some food if you're hungry." No, Marcus said, waving his hand. "The water is enough. Thank you." She didn't leave immediately. Instead, she crouched down to his level, not caring that the sidewalk was dirty. "It's dangerous to be out in this heat without water. Is there somewhere you can go to cool down? A shelter, maybe?" Marcus shook his head. "I'm okay here, miss. I've been through worse." She looked troubled by that answer, but she nodded. "Okay, well, I'm Emma. I come down the street every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. If you're here and you need anything, just let me know." "Okay. Thank you, Emma," Marcus said. I'm Charles." He'd given himself a fake name for these excursions, not wanting anyone to recognize his real one. Emma smiled again and stood up. "Nice to meet you, Charles. Stay safe." She walked away, and Marcus watched her go, his mind racing. He waited until she was out of sight, then pulled out the small phone he kept hidden in his pocket and quickly typed a message to his private investigator. Woman named Emma, late 20s, brown curly hair, walks down Peachtree Street on Tuesdays and Thursdays with a bag of supplies for homeless people. Find out everything about her. Then he sat back against the wall, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Maybe, just maybe, his search was over. 2 days later, Marcus sat in his private study in his mansion in Buckhead, reading the report his investigator had compiled. The more he read, the more impressed he became. Emma Rodriguez, age 28, grew up in a working-class neighborhood in East Atlanta. Father was a mechanic who died when she was 16. Mother worked 2 jobs to keep Emma and her younger brother in school. Emma had won a partial scholarship to Georgia State University, but had to work full-time while attending to pay for the rest of her tuition. She'd graduated 4 years ago with a degree in social work. Currently employed at the Atlanta Community Outreach Center, a nonprofit that helped homeless individuals and families. Her salary was modest, barely above the poverty line for Atlanta's cost of living. She lived in a small apartment in Virginia Highland with 2 roommates. And here was the part that made Marcus smile. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she spent her lunch break walking through downtown Atlanta, distributing water and food to homeless people. She bought the supplies with her own money, often skipping meals herself to afford it. The investigator had included several photos. Emma at work, helping a homeless woman fill out paperwork. Emma at a grocery store, carefully comparing prices before buying cases of water. Emma in her apartment, which was tiny but clean, making sandwiches at her small kitchen counter, preparing her care packages for the week. There was even a photo of her from the day she'd given Marcus water, her face lit up with that beautiful, genuine smile. Marcus set down the report and leaned back in his leather chair. This was it. This was exactly what he'd been looking for. Emma Rodriguez was kind without expecting anything in return. She was hardworking and humble. She cared about others even when it cost her personally. And she wasn't motivated by wealth or status. She could have pursued a more lucrative career with her degree, but she'd chosen to help people instead. She was perfect. Now he just had to figure out how to introduce her to David without his son immediately becoming suspicious. That night, Marcus invited David over for dinner. They sat in the formal dining room, served by Marcus's longtime housekeeper, Mrs. Chun, who'd been with the family for 20 years. David looked tired. His expensive suit was slightly rumpled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. At 35, he was starting to show the strain of the relentless pace he kept, working 80-hour weeks at the company. "You look exhausted," Marcus said, cutting into his steak. "Big merger coming up," David replied, barely looking up from his own plate. "The Richardson deal. It's complicated. You need to slow down, son." David laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Slow down? Dad, you built this company by never slowing down. I'm just following your example." The words stung because they were true. Marcus had sacrificed everything for his business, including his marriage and his relationship with his son. He was trying to make up for it now, but the damage was already done. "I made mistakes, David," Marcus said quietly. "I don't want you to make the same ones." "What mistakes?" David set down his fork and looked at his father directly. "You built an empire. You're worth billions. You're successful by every measure." "I'm lonely," Marcus said simply. "I'm 68 years old, and I eat dinner alone most nights. Is that the life you want?" David's jaw tightened. "Dad, please don't start with this again. I'm not trying to pressure you. I just want you to be open to the possibility that there might be someone out there worth letting in." "I've let plenty of people in," David said coldly. "They all wanted something. Madison wanted to be on the society pages. Jessica wanted to use my connections for her art gallery. Nicole," he trailed off, his face darkening. "Nicole wanted me to finance her startup, and when I said no, she was gone within a week. So forgive me if I'm not optimistic about finding true love." Marcus chose his next words carefully. "What if I told you I might have found someone different? Someone who doesn't know who you are, Who has no idea about your money or your name? David laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. Dad, everyone knows who we are. The Wellington name is on half the buildings in Atlanta. Not everyone, Marcus said. There are people in this city who have more important things to worry about than keeping up with the society pages. People who work hard every day just to survive. Good people. David's eyes narrowed with suspicion. What are you planning? Nothing, Marcus said, perhaps a bit too quickly. I just think you should keep an open mind. That's all. David studied his father for a long moment, then shook his head. You're up to something. I can tell. Whatever it is, please don't. I appreciate that you care, but I'm fine with my life the way it is. Are you? Marcus asked. Are you really fine, David? Or are you just afraid? The question hung in the air between them. David's face flushed with anger, but underneath it, Marcus could see he'd struck a nerve. I should go, David said, standing up abruptly. Thanks for dinner. He walked out without another word, leaving Marcus alone at the long dining table. Mrs. Chun appeared in the doorway, concerned. Is everything all right, Mr. Wellington? Marcus sighed. I hope so, Mrs. Chun. I really hope so. After David left, Marcus sat in his study, thinking. His son was even more closed off than he'd feared. A direct introduction wouldn't work. David would immediately be suspicious of any woman Marcus tried to set him up with. He needed a different approach. And then it came to him. David's company had a policy of hiring from a specific employment agency for household staff. If Emma needed a job, a better-paying job, and if that job happened to be as David's housekeeper, it was manipulative. It was deceptive. But Marcus was running out of options. He picked up his phone and made a call. Johnson? It's Marcus Wellington. I need a favor. The next day, Marcus returned to his spot on Peachtree Street. He decided he needed to talk to Emma again, to learn more about her before proceeding with his plan. He couldn't just throw her into David's life without knowing more about who she was. At exactly 1:15 p.m., Emma appeared, her canvas bag over her shoulder. She was wearing jeans and a green t-shirt today, and her curly hair was pulled back in the same practical ponytail. Marcus watched as she stopped to talk to another homeless person first, a woman sitting near the corner. Emma crouched down, handed her some water and food, and talked with her for several minutes, really listening. Then she spotted Marcus and her face lit up. Charles, you're still here. How are you doing? Better now that you're here, miss, Marcus said, keeping his voice weak and raspy. That water you gave me last time, it saved me. It was a hot day. I'm glad I could help, Emma said, pulling out another bottle from her bag. Here, take this one too. And I brought some protein bars today. They're good for energy. Marcus accepted them gratefully. You're an angel, you know that? Emma laughed and sat down beside him on the sidewalk, not seeming to care about her clothes. I'm definitely not an angel. I just try to help when I can. Why? Marcus asked, genuinely curious now. Most people just walk by. Emma was quiet for a moment, looking out at the street. My dad, she finally said. After he died, things got really hard for my family. There were times when we didn't have enough food, when we were close to losing our apartment. People helped us. Neighbors brought us meals. My mom's coworkers donated money. A teacher at my school even paid for my SAT prep course out of his own pocket. She turned to look at Marcus, and there were tears in her eyes. Those people didn't have to help us. They did it because they cared. And I made a promise to myself that when I was able, I'd do the same for others. So here I am. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. This woman was even better than he'd hoped. Your father would be proud of you. I hope so, Emma said softly. Then she smiled and wiped her eyes. Sorry. I didn't mean to get all emotional on you. Don't apologize, Marcus said. It's good to feel things. Too many people walk around like they're dead inside. Emma studied him more carefully. Charles, you seem different from... you seem very articulate. How did you end up on the streets? Marcus had prepared a story for this question. I used to have a good job, he said. Worked in an office. But I made some bad decisions. Started drinking. Lost my job, lost my family, lost everything. By the time I got sober, it was too late. No one would hire me. I've been trying to get back on my feet, but it's hard when you're starting from nothing. It was a common enough story that Emma didn't question it. Instead, she looked thoughtful. Have you tried any of the job assistance programs? The center where I work helps people get back into the workforce. I've tried a few things, Marcus said vaguely. But at my age, it's tough. Emma nodded sympathetically. Then her face brightened. What kind of work did you used to do? Marcus thought quickly. I was in property management. Helped maintain buildings, coordinate repairs, that sort of thing. Really? Emma pulled out her phone. Let me see if any of the buildings I know are hiring maintenance staff. It's honest work and some of them pay pretty well. Marcus watched her scroll through her phone, completely absorbed in trying to help him. She spent 10 minutes making calls right there on the sidewalk, talking to people she knew, asking about job openings. When she finally hung up, she looked disappointed. Nothing right now, she said. But I gave them your name, Charles. If anything opens up, where can they reach you? I don't have a phone, Marcus said. But I'm here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you hear anything, you can tell me then. Emma frowned. That's not efficient. Wait here. She stood up and walked quickly down the block. Marcus watched, puzzled, as she went into a phone store. She emerged 15 minutes later carrying a small bag. Here, she said, handing it to him. Inside was a basic smartphone. It's a prepaid phone. I put 3 months of service on it. Now people can call you if they have job opportunities. Marcus stared at the phone, genuinely shocked. Emma, I can't accept this. This must have cost you. Don't worry about it, she interrupted. Consider it an investment in your future. Everyone needs a phone to get a job these days. I programmed my number in there. If you need anything, call me. Okay? She had spent at least $150 on a phone for a homeless man she barely knew. Marcus felt his eyes getting wet. He wasn't acting anymore. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You have no idea what this means. Emma smiled and squeezed his shoulder. We all need help sometimes, Charles. There's no shame in it. I have to get back to work now, but I'll see you next week. Okay? Marcus watched her walk away, and for the first time in years he felt truly humbled. This young woman had almost nothing compared to his billions, yet she gave so freely and so generously. She was exactly what his son needed. No, she was what everyone needed. She was a reminder that goodness still existed in the world. He pulled out his real phone and made another call. Johnson, move forward with the plan, and make it happen fast. 3 days later, Emma was called into her supervisor's office at the Atlanta Community Outreach Center. Maria Gonzalez was a tough but fair woman who had been running the center for 15 years. She looked serious as Emma sat down. Emma, I need to talk to you about something, Maria said. Emma's heart sank. Was she being fired? Had she done something wrong? Don't look so worried, Maria said with a slight smile. You're not in trouble. Actually, the opposite. I got a call from a recruiter yesterday. They're looking for someone to fill a household manager position. It's with a private family and the pay is, well, it's substantial. 3 times what you make here. Emma blinked in surprise. Household manager? I don't understand. I'm a social worker. I know, Maria said. But the recruiter specifically asked for someone with your skills. They want someone organized, compassionate, and responsible. Someone who can run a household but also understands people. You fit that description perfectly. Why would they call you? They've been calling various nonprofits, looking for candidates with the right character. When they described what they wanted, I immediately thought of you. Maria leaned forward. Emma, I don't want to lose you. You're one of the best people we have here. But I also know you've been struggling financially. This job could change your life. Emma sat back, processing this information. Who is the family? I don't know, Maria admitted. The recruiter kept that confidential. But they're very wealthy, that much is clear. And they're offering an excellent salary, health insurance, and housing. You'd live on the property. Emma's mind raced. She shared a tiny apartment with 2 roommates and could barely afford her half of the rent. She'd been living paycheck to paycheck for years, unable to save anything. This job could solve all her financial problems. But something felt off about it. Why me specifically? The recruiter said they do extensive background checks and look for people with strong character references. Your work here, your education, your volunteer work, it all apparently impressed them. Maria smiled. Emma, you're a good person who works hard. Someone noticed. I think you should at least go to the interview. Emma thought about it. She loved her work at the center, but Maria was right. She was barely surviving financially. Maybe this was an opportunity she couldn't afford to pass up. Okay, she said finally. I'll go to the interview. When is it? Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Maria handed her a card with an address. It's a nice area, Buckhead. Dress professionally. And Emma? Good luck. That evening, Emma called her mother. Rosa Rodriguez lived in a small house in Marietta now. The house Emma and her brother had managed to buy for her 2 years ago by pooling every penny they'd saved. Mommy, something strange happened today, Emma said, and explained about the job offer. Her mother was quiet for a moment. 3 times your salary? Yes. And they came looking for you specifically? That's what Maria said. Mija, her mother said carefully. This sounds too good to be true. You need to be careful. I know, Mommy, but what if it's real? What if this is my chance to finally get ahead? Rosa sighed. Then you go to the interview, but you trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, you walk away. Promise me. I promise. The next morning, Emma put on her only interview outfit, a simple navy blue dress she'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. She took the bus to Buckhead, watching the neighborhoods get progressively wealthier as they drove north. When she got off at her stop, she felt distinctly out of place among the luxury cars and designer-dressed people walking by. The address led her to a tall office building downtown. She took the elevator to the 15th floor and found herself in an elegant waiting room with modern furniture and abstract art on the walls. A woman in her 40s, dressed impeccably in a gray suit, greeted her. Miss Rodriguez? I'm Janet Foster from Elite Staffing Solutions. Thank you for coming. They went into a conference room, and Janet spent the next hour asking Emma questions about her background, her experience, her philosophy on work and life. Emma answered honestly, though she still felt confused about why a household manager position would require such an extensive interview. Miss Rodriguez, Janet finally said, I'm going to be direct with you. My client is a very successful businessman. He's extremely private and values his privacy above almost everything else. He needs someone to manage his household who is discreet, trustworthy, and capable. Based on your background and our conversation, I believe you're an excellent fit. Can you tell me who the client is? Emma asked. Not yet, Janet said. If you accept the position, you'll meet him on your first day. What I can tell you is that the salary is $85,000 per year, with full health benefits, dental, and vision. You'll have your own suite on the property, meals provided, and 2 days off per week. Your responsibilities will include general household management, coordinating with other staff, and some light personal assistance. Emma's head spun. $85,000 a year? That was more money than she'd ever imagined making. It was almost as much as her mother had made in the last 3 years combined. That's very generous, Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. My client values good people and compensates them well, Janet said. So, Miss Rodriguez, are you interested? Every logical part of Emma's brain was screaming that this was too good to be true. But she thought about her mother working 2 jobs, about her tiny apartment with its leaky ceiling, about the homeless people she tried to help with the little money she had. With this salary, she could do so much more. Yes, Emma said. I'm interested. Janet smiled. Excellent. I'll email you the contract and the non-disclosure agreement. You'll start Monday morning. The address is in Buckhead. Be there at 8 a.m. sharp. As Emma rode the bus home, she felt like she was in a dream. She kept checking her email on her phone, making sure the contract was real. When she finally opened it and saw the salary figure in writing, she actually gasped out loud, causing the woman next to her on the bus to give her a strange look. She called Maria and gave her 2 weeks' notice, though Maria convinced her to make it 1 week given the urgency of the new position. Then she called her mother. "Mommy, I got the job. Are you sure about this, Mija?" Emma looked out the bus window at the city passing by. "No," she admitted, "but I'm going to try anyway." That Sunday, Emma spent the day preparing. She went to Goodwill and bought 2 more professional outfits. She got her hair trimmed at a discount salon. She researched household management online, trying to understand what the job would actually entail. And on Tuesday afternoon, she made her usual walk down Peachtree Street with her bag of supplies. She found Charles in his usual spot and sat down beside him. "Charles, guess what? I got a new job." Marcus looked up, feigning surprise though he knew all about it. "That's wonderful news, Emma. Tell me about it." "It's a household manager position," she said excitedly. "The pay is amazing. I still can't believe it's real. I start tomorrow." "I'm so happy for you," Marcus said, and he meant it. "You deserve good things, Emma. You give so much to others." "I'm going to miss seeing you," Emma said, her smile fading slightly. "But I programmed all the local resource numbers into that phone I gave you. If you need anything, food banks, shelters, job assistance, they're all in there. And you can still call me if you need help. Okay? You've already helped me more than you know," Marcus said softly. Emma hugged him, and Marcus felt a pang of guilt for deceiving her, but he pushed it aside. Once she met David, once she saw that this was about more than just a job, she'd understand. "Good luck tomorrow," Marcus said. "I have a feeling this is going to change your life." "I hope so," Emma said. "I really hope so." The next morning, Emma stood outside the massive iron gates of a mansion in Buckhead, her heart pounding. She checked the address 3 times to make sure she had it right. This couldn't possibly be someone's home. It looked like something out of a movie. A sprawling estate with perfectly manicured lawns and a house that was more like a palace. She pressed the intercom button, and a woman's voice answered. "Yes, Emma Rodriguez. I'm here for the household manager position." "Come in, Miss Rodriguez." The gates swung open silently, and Emma walked up the long driveway, her small rolling suitcase bumping behind her on the smooth pavement. Before she reached the front door, it opened, and Mrs. Chun stood there with a welcoming smile. "Miss Rodriguez, welcome. I'm Mrs. Chun, the head housekeeper. I'll be showing you around today." Emma followed her inside, and her breath caught. The entrance hall alone was bigger than her entire apartment. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, artwork that looked like it belonged in a museum hung on the walls, and a grand staircase curved upward to the 2nd floor. "This is beautiful," Emma breathed. Mrs. Chun smiled. "Mr. Wellington has excellent taste. Come, let me show you to your quarters first." Mr. Wellington. So that was her employer's name. Emma followed Mrs. Chun through a maze of hallways to a door near the back of the house. Mrs. Chun opened it to reveal a suite that was nicer than any apartment Emma had ever lived in. There was a bedroom with a king-size bed, a sitting area with a couch and TV, and a private bathroom with a deep soaking tub. "This is all for me?" Emma asked in disbelief. "Yes, dear. Mr. Wellington believes his staff should be comfortable. Take some time to settle in, and then I'll show you the rest of the house and explain your duties." After Mrs. Chun left, Emma sat on the bed and looked around, and tears started rolling down her face. Just a week ago, she'd been struggling to pay rent on a tiny room. Now she was living in a mansion. Felt surreal. She unpacked her few belongings, feeling almost embarrassed by how little she had. Then she changed into one of her new professional outfits and went to find Mrs. Chun. For the next several hours, Mrs. Chun showed her around the massive house, explaining the daily routines, introducing her to the other staff members, a cook, 2 more housekeepers, a gardener, and a driver. Everyone was kind and welcoming, but Emma could see they were curious about her. Apparently, the household manager position had been vacant for over a year. "Mr. Wellington is very particular about who works in his home," Mrs. Chun explained. "He values character above all else." He must have seen something special in you. When will I meet him? Emma asked. Mrs. Chun checked her watch. He's at his office today, but his son will be here this evening. Mr. David Wellington. You'll actually be working primarily for him. His father is semi-retired now. A son. The thought made Emma nervous. She'd assumed she'd be working for an older man, someone retired and quiet. But a son meant someone younger, someone who might be more demanding. What's he like? Emma asked carefully. Mrs. Chun chose her words carefully. Mr. David is a good man, but he works very hard. Too hard sometimes. He's usually at the office until late, and he often works from home on weekends. Your main job will be keeping his life organized, so he can focus on his work. That didn't sound so bad. Emma could do organized. She'd been managing the chaos of the community center for years. That evening, as Emma was reviewing the household schedule in her suite, she heard a car pull up outside. She looked out her window and saw a sleek black Mercedes. A man got out, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive suit. Even from a distance, she could see he moved with confidence, like someone who owned every space he entered. David Wellington was home. Emma's heart started beating faster. She checked her appearance in the mirror, smoothed down her dress, and told herself to stay calm. This was just a job. She could do this. A few minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Mrs. Chun stood there with an encouraging smile. Mr. David would like to meet you. He's in the study. Emma followed Mrs. Chun through the house to a large room lined with bookshelves. David stood by the window, his back to them, looking out at the gardens. When he turned around, Emma's breath caught. He was handsome in a sharp, intense way. Dark hair, strong jawline, and eyes that looked like they didn't miss anything. But there was something cold in his expression, something closed off. Mr. Wellington, this is Emma Rodriguez, your new household manager, Mrs. Chin said. David's eyes swept over Emma, assessing her. Miss Rodriguez. Mr. Wellington, Emma said, extending her hand. It's nice to meet you. He shook her hand briefly, his grip firm but impersonal. I understand you came highly recommended. I'll do my best to meet your expectations, sir. I'm rarely home, David said, getting straight to business. I usually leave by 6 a.m. and return after 8 p.m. On weekends, I often work from home, and I don't like to be disturbed. Your job is to ensure the household runs smoothly. Meals prepared on time, laundry done, the house kept clean and organized. Think you can handle that? Yes, sir. Good. Mrs. Chun has all the details. If you need anything, ask her. I prefer to keep interactions minimal. It was a clear dismissal. Emma nodded and left with Mrs. Chun, feeling slightly stung by his coldness. As they walked back through the hallway, Mrs. Chun patted her shoulder. Don't take it personally, dear. He's like that with everyone. He's been hurt before and he's built walls. But underneath, he's a good man. You'll see. Emma wasn't so sure. But she'd accepted this job and she was going to do it well, cold employer or not. The first week was challenging. David kept to his word about being rarely home. Emma would hear him leave early in the morning before she was even awake. She'd prepare meals according to the schedule Mrs. Chun had given her, leaving them warming in the kitchen, and usually David would eat quickly and retreat to his study. Sometimes she wouldn't see him for days. But Emma threw herself into her work. She reorganized the household schedule, making it more efficient. She coordinated with the other staff to ensure everything ran smoothly. She even started adding small touches, fresh flowers in the common areas, better organization in the kitchen, small improvements that made the house feel more like a home. Mrs. Chun noticed and approved. You have good instincts, Emma. The house already feels different. On her second Tuesday working there, Emma asked Mrs. Chun for a few hours off during her lunch break. There's something I need to do downtown. Mrs. Chun agreed easily. David was at work anyway and wouldn't notice. So Emma took the bus down to Peachtree Street, her canvas bag over her shoulder filled with supplies she'd bought with part of her first paycheck. She found Charles in his usual spot, and his face lit up when he saw her. Emma, you came back. Of course I did, she said, sitting beside him. How are you doing? They talked for a while, and Emma gave him the supplies she'd brought. Charles asked her about her new job, and she found herself confiding in him. The house is beautiful, and the job is great, but my employer. She trailed off. What about him? Charles asked gently. He's so cold, so closed off. He barely acknowledges I exist. I know I'm just staff, but it would be nice to be treated like a person. Charles looked thoughtful. Maybe he's just lonely. Sometimes people build walls to protect themselves, and then they forget how to let anyone in. Maybe, Emma said, but it's hard to help someone who won't let you near them. After her visit with Charles, Emma rode the bus back to Buckhead, not knowing that the homeless man she'd been confiding in was actually her employer's father, listening carefully to every word and feeling more certain than ever that his plan was going to work. The breakthrough came during Emma's third week on the job. It was a Saturday morning, and Emma was in the kitchen helping the cook prepare lunch when she heard a loud crash from upstairs, followed by frustrated cursing. Mrs. Chun looked at Emma with concern. That came from Mr. David's study. Should we check on him? Emma asked. You go, Mrs. Chun said. You're the household manager. It's your job. Emma climbed the stairs nervously and knocked on the study door. Mr. Wellington? Is everything okay? Go away, came the sharp reply. But Emma had spent years working with difficult people at the community center. She'd learned that sometimes you had to push past the initial resistance. She opened the door and looked in. David was on his hands and knees on the floor, picking up papers that were scattered everywhere. A file box had apparently fallen from a high shelf, spilling its contents across the carpet. And from the look on David's face, these were important documents. I said go away, David snapped, not looking up. I can see you need help, Emma said calmly, walking in and kneeling down to start gathering papers. I don't need help. I need people to do what I tell them. Emma kept picking up papers. These are organized by date, right? I'll sort them as I go. David finally looked at her, anger and frustration written on his face. But Emma just met his gaze steadily, not intimidated. After a moment, some of the tension left his shoulders. Fine, he muttered. Just be careful with them. They're important. They worked in silence for several minutes, gathering papers. Emma noticed they were contracts and correspondence, some of them dating back years. She sorted them carefully by date and topic, using the organizational skills she developed at the center. You're good at this, David said grudgingly. I used to manage files for hundreds of clients at my old job. This is actually kind of relaxing. Relaxing? David shook his head. You're an odd person, Miss Rodriguez. Emma, she corrected. And yes, I've been told that before. For the first time since she'd met him, David almost smiled. Almost. Okay, Emma. Thank you for your help. They finished sorting the papers, and Emma helped him put them back into the file box in proper order. As she was leaving, David called out to her. Emma? She turned. Yes, sir? You can call me David. When we're not in formal situations, it was a small thing, but it felt like a victory. Okay, David. After that day, things slowly started to shift. David began coming home a little earlier. He'd sometimes eat dinner in the dining room instead of taking it to his study. He'd stop to chat briefly with Emma when they passed in the hallways. The walls were still there, but they were developing small cracks. One evening, about a month after Emma started, David came home to find her in the kitchen making sandwiches and packing them into small bags. What are you doing? He asked, curious. Emma looked up, startled. She'd thought David was in his study. It's Tuesday. I usually visit some people downtown on Tuesdays and Thursdays. People who are homeless. I bring them food and water. David's expression shifted, becoming unreadable. You do that on your own time? Yes, I've been doing it for years. She smiled. I actually met someone really special doing this. An older man named Charles. He's become a friend. You give food to homeless people and call them friends, David said slowly, like he was trying to understand a foreign concept. Why not? They're just people who've had bad luck. Everyone deserves kindness. David was quiet for a long moment. That's actually really nice. What you're doing. Emma shrugged. It's not much. I wish I could do more. Can I help? Emma looked at him in surprise. What? Can I help? I could drive you. You usually take the bus, right? It would be faster if I drove. Emma didn't know what to say. This was the same man who'd barely spoken to her for weeks, now offering to help with her volunteer work? You don't have to. I want to, David interrupted. If that's okay. Okay, Emma said, still surprised. That would actually be really helpful. 20 minutes later, they were in David's Mercedes, driving toward downtown. David was quiet, his hands gripping the steering wheel. Emma gave him directions, and soon they were parking near Peachtree Street. I usually walk this whole area, Emma explained. There are several people I try to check on regularly. They got out, and Emma led the way, her bag over her shoulder. David followed, looking distinctly uncomfortable in his expensive suit among the homeless population of downtown Atlanta. But he stayed by Emma's side as she stopped to talk to different people, handing out food and water, asking about their well-being, treating each person with dignity and respect. David watched, something shifting inside him. He'd spent his whole life either ignoring homeless people or seeing them as problems to be avoided. But watching Emma interact with them, seeing how grateful they were, how much a simple sandwich and a kind word meant to them, something inside him started to thaw. Finally, they came to a particular spot against a closed storefront, and Emma's face lit up. Charles, I brought someone with me today. David looked at the old homeless man sitting there, and something about him seemed familiar, though David couldn't place why. The man looked up at Emma with genuine affection. Then his eyes shifted to David, and for just a second, David could swear he saw recognition there. But that was impossible. This was just a homeless man Emma had befriended. Charles, this is David, Emma said. He's my employer. David, this is Charles, the friend I was telling you about. Nice to meet you, young man, Charles said, extending his hand. David shook it, surprised by the firm grip. Nice to meet you, sir. They talked for a few minutes, Charles asking David about his work and his life with genuine interest. David found himself answering honestly, more honestly than he'd talked to anyone in years. There was something about this old man that made him want to be truthful. You're lucky to have Emma working for you, Charles said finally. She's a special person. I'm starting to realize that, David admitted, glancing at Emma, who was blushing. On the drive back, David was quiet, processing everything he'd seen. When they pulled into the mansion's driveway, Emma turned to him. Thank you for coming with me. I know it was probably out of your comfort zone. It was, David admitted, but I'm glad I did. Your friend Charles, he seems like a wise man. He is, Emma said warmly. He's helped me a lot, actually, even when he had nothing himself. David nodded slowly. Emma, can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you do this? You don't make much money, even with this job. Why spend what you have on strangers? Emma thought about it for a moment. Because when I needed help, people helped me. And because everyone deserves to be seen, to be treated like they matter. We're all one or two bad breaks away from being where they are. Her words hit David hard. He'd spent so long seeing the world as divided into winners and losers, never considering how quickly circumstances could change. Never considering that the people he looked down on were just people who'd had bad luck. Thank you for showing me this, he said quietly. Thank you for helping, Emma replied with a smile. After that evening, things changed faster. David started coming home earlier, and he'd seek out Emma's company. They'd talk over dinner, conversations that started professional but gradually became more personal. David found himself looking forward to coming home, something he hadn't felt in years. He started noticing little things about Emma. The way she hummed while she worked. The way she always had a kind word for everyone, from Mrs. Chun to the gardener. The way her face lit up when she talked about something she cared about. The way she saw the good in people, even when they tried to hide it. And slowly, terrifyingly, David realized he was developing feelings for her. It had been so long since he'd let himself feel anything real that at first he didn't recognize what was happening. He told himself he just appreciated having a competent household manager. He told himself he just respected her character. He told himself it was just friendship. But the truth was undeniable. He was falling in love with Emma Rodriguez. The realization hit him fully one evening when he came home late from a difficult meeting. He'd lost a major deal, something he'd been working on for months, and he was furious and frustrated. He walked into the house, ready to retreat to his study and drown his anger in work. But Emma was in the kitchen, and she took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. "Rough day?" she asked gently. "You could say that," David said, his voice tight. "Want to talk about it?" "No." "Yes." "I don't know." He slumped into a chair at the kitchen table, and suddenly all his professional composure cracked. "I lost a deal I'd been working on for 6 months. This company I was trying to acquire, they went with a competitor. All that work, all that time, wasted." Emma sat down across from him. "That sounds really frustrating." "It's more than frustrating. It's humiliating. I never lose deals. Everyone at the office will be talking about it. My competitors will use it against me. Is that what bothers you most? What other people will think?" David stopped, caught off guard by the question. I don't know. Maybe." "David," Emma said softly, "you are more than your business deals. Your worth isn't measured by your win-loss record." "Easy for you to say," David muttered. "You don't live in my world. Everything is competition. If you're not winning, you're losing." "That sounds exhausting," Emma said. "And lonely." The simple observation cut right through David's defenses. She was right. It was exhausting. It was lonely. He'd built his entire life around winning, and he'd never stopped to ask himself why or what he was even winning for. "Yeah," he admitted quietly. "It is." Emma reached across the table and took his hand. It was a simple gesture, just human contact, but it made something inside David break open. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw genuine concern and care in her eyes, not because he was successful or wealthy, but just because he was hurting. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "For what?" "For seeing me, the real me, not the businessman or the Wellington heir. Just me." Emma smiled. "I like the real you. You should let him out more often." That night, after Emma had gone to her suite, David sat in his study and admitted the truth to himself. He was in love with her, completely, terrifyingly in love, and he had no idea what to do about it, because Emma worked for him, because there was a massive power imbalance, because she might not feel the same way, because he'd sworn he'd never let anyone close enough to hurt him again. But it was too late. She was already close. She'd somehow slipped past all his defenses without him realizing it. And the thought of her leaving, of going back to her old life or finding another job, was unbearable. He needed to talk to someone, and there was only one person who might understand: his father. The next day, David showed up unannounced at his father's office. Marcus looked up from his desk, surprised but pleased. "David, this is unexpected. What brings you here?" David closed the door and sat down heavily. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something." "Of course. What is it?" "It's about Emma, my household manager." Marcus's expression stayed carefully neutral, though inside he was practically celebrating. "What about her?" "I think I'm in love with her." There. He'd said it out loud. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "And is that a problem?" "Yes. No. I don't know." David ran his hands through his hair. "Dad, she works for me. It's completely inappropriate. And even if it wasn't, why would she be interested in me? I've been nothing but cold to her for weeks. And she's so good. She's kind and caring, and she actually makes the world better just by being in it. I'm just a workaholic businessman who's probably going to end up alone." "Stop," Marcus said firmly. "David, you're a good man. You've forgotten that about yourself, but it's true. And from what you've told me, Emma seems like she sees that." "How do you know what I've told you?" "I barely talk about her." "You talk about her more than you realize," Marcus said with a knowing smile. Every time we speak lately, Emma's name comes up. Emma reorganized the house. Emma said something insightful. Emma helped me see things differently. Son, you're already in love with her. The only question is, what are you going to do about it? David was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if I can do this, Dad. What if she breaks my heart like Mom did? Marcus came around his desk and put a hand on his son's shoulder. David, your mother leaving was my fault, not yours. I was a terrible husband, never home, always working. I took her for granted. And I'm sorry that you had to witness that and that it shaped how you see relationships. But Emma is not your mother. And you are not me. You have a chance here for something real. Don't throw it away because you're afraid. What if she doesn't feel the same way? Then you'll hurt for a while and then you'll heal. But at least you'll know. Living with regret is worse than living with heartbreak. Believe me. David nodded slowly. Okay. I'll talk to her. Good, Marcus said, feeling a warmth in his chest. His plan had worked even better than he'd hoped. David and Emma had found each other naturally, without any forced introduction. The love growing between them was real. Now he just had to hope his son didn't mess it up. That evening, David came home with flowers, a massive bouquet of roses and lilies. Emma was in the living room, and she looked up in surprise when he walked in. Those are beautiful, she said. Are they for Mrs. Chun? They're for you, David said, holding them out to her. Emma's eyes widened. For me? Why? Because I wanted to give you flowers, David said, suddenly feeling nervous. This was harder than any business negotiation he'd ever done. Emma, can we talk? Of course. She took the flowers, burying her face in them for a moment. Thank you, David. These are lovely. They sat down on the couch, and David's heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. Emma, I need to tell you something, and I'm not very good at this, so please bear with me. She looked at him with those warm brown eyes, waiting patiently. When you first started working here, I was determined to keep you at a distance. I didn't want to get close to anyone because I'd been hurt before. But you, he shook his head. You didn't let me stay closed off. You were kind and patient and you saw past all my walls. And somewhere along the way, I started falling for you. Emma's breath caught. David, I know this is complicated. I know you work for me and that creates a power imbalance. I know I probably should have kept this professional. But I can't anymore, Emma. I'm in love with you. Emma sat very still, tears forming in her eyes. I can't believe you're saying this. David's heart sank. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. No, Emma interrupted, laughing through her tears. I mean, I can't believe you're saying this because I feel the same way. I've been in love with you for weeks, David. I just thought there was no way you could ever see me as anything more than your employee. Relief flooded through David, so intense it was almost painful. Really? Really? Emma said, smiling that beautiful smile that had captured his heart. David reached out and cupped her face gently. Emma Rodriguez, can I kiss you? Yes, she whispered. Their first kiss was soft and sweet, full of all the feelings they'd been holding back. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. So what does this mean? Emma asked. I can't keep working for you if we're whatever we are. Then you're fired, David said immediately. Emma laughed. That was fast. I'll give you an incredible severance package, David continued, and hire someone else to run the household. But Emma, I don't want you here as my employee. I want you here as my partner, my girlfriend. Eventually, if you'll have me as my wife. Emma's eyes widened. Wife? David, we just had our first kiss. I know. I'm getting ahead of myself. But Emma, I've spent my whole adult life refusing to believe in love, and you changed all that in just a few weeks. I know what I want now. I want you. Emma kissed him again. Then you've got me. They spent the rest of the evening talking, really talking about everything. Their fears, their hopes, their pasts, their futures. David told her about his mother leaving and how it had shaped him. Emma told him more about losing her father and struggling to survive. They talked until late into the night, curled up together on the couch, and for the first time in his adult life, David felt completely at peace. The next day, David called his father. "Dad, can you come over? There's someone I want you to meet officially." Marcus smiled. "I'd be delighted." That evening, Marcus arrived at David's mansion. He was dressed impeccably as always, and when Emma opened the door, he saw her eyes widen in shock. "Charles?" she whispered. Marcus smiled gently. "Hello, Emma. Or should I say, hello again?" Emma's mind was reeling. "But, you're David's father? You're Marcus Wellington." David appeared behind Emma, looking confused. "You two know each other?" "Charles is the homeless man I told you about," Emma said, still staring at Marcus in shock. "The one I've been visiting downtown." Understanding dawned on David's face, followed quickly by realization. "Dad, what did you do?" Marcus walked into the house calmly. "Can we all sit down? I think I owe you both an explanation." They sat in the living room, Emma still clutching David's hand like an anchor. Marcus took his time, choosing his words carefully. "David, you know I've been worried about you for years. You refused to believe in love, refused to open yourself up to anyone. I wanted to help, but I knew if I tried to set you up with someone, you'd reject them on principle." He turned to Emma. "So I decided to find someone who was genuinely kind, someone who would show compassion to people even when there was nothing in it for them. I disguised myself as a homeless man and sat on Peachtree Street for weeks, watching people pass by. And then you found me," Emma said quietly. "Yes, I saw how you treated everyone, how you gave away water and food even though you had so little yourself. I saw your kindness, your generous heart, and I knew you were exactly what my son needed." David's jaw was tight. "So you manipulated us? You orchestrated all of this?" "I created an opportunity," Marcus said carefully. "But everything that happened between you two, the feelings, the connection, that was real. I didn't make you fall in love, David. I just put her in your path." Emma was quiet, processing everything. "The job offer, that came from you, didn't it? You arranged it." Marcus nodded. "I did. I knew you were struggling financially, and I knew David needed someone to manage his household. It seemed like the perfect solution." "Perfect solution?" David stood up, angry now. "Dad, this is insane. You lied to both of us. You played God with our lives. And are you unhappy with the result?" Marcus asked calmly. David opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He looked at Emma, who was sitting quietly on the couch, her expression unreadable. "Emma," David said softly, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea he was doing this." Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up at Marcus. "You tested me. All those times we talked, you were evaluating whether I was good enough for your son." "Not good enough," Marcus corrected gently. "Right for him. And yes, I was watching. But Emma, everything I learned about you only confirmed what I'd already seen. You're an extraordinary person." "You lied to me," Emma said, and there was hurt in her voice. "I thought we were friends, Charles. I told you things, personal things. And the whole time, you were lying about who you were." Marcus's expression softened with genuine regret. "You're right, and I'm sorry for that. The friendship was real, Emma. Everything I told you, the conversations we had, those were real. The only thing I lied about was my circumstances." Emma stood up and walked to the window, her back to both of them. David wanted to go to her, but something told him she needed space. "Emma," Marcus said quietly, "I know I've hurt you, and I'm sorry. But please understand, I was desperate. My son was throwing his life away, building walls that would eventually trap him alone. When I met you, I saw hope. I saw someone who could help him remember how to be human again." "You should have told me," Emma said, her voice thick. "You should have trusted me with the truth." "You're right," Marcus agreed. "And for that, I apologize." Emma turned around, and there were tears on her face. "Did you ever actually need that water I gave you? Or was that just part of the act?" "I needed it," Marcus said truthfully. "Maybe not for the reasons you thought, but I needed it, Emma. I needed to see that there were still people like you in the world. People who give without expecting anything in return. Emma looked at David. Did you know about any of this? No, David said firmly. I swear to you, Emma, I had no idea. If I had known. He trailed off. Actually, I don't know what I would have done. Probably messed it all up out of principle. Despite everything, Emma laughed a little at that. Yeah, you probably would have. She was quiet for another moment, then sighed. This is a lot to process. I understand, Marcus said. And if you're angry with me, you have every right to be. If you want nothing more to do with our family, I'll understand that too. Emma looked between Marcus and David. She could see the genuine regret on Marcus's face, the fear on David's. And underneath all her hurt and confusion, she understood something important. You know what the worst part is? Emma said finally. It actually worked. Everything you hoped would happen, happened. David and I fell in love. Real love. Not manipulation. No matter how it started. She walked over to David and took his hands. I love you. That's real. That has nothing to do with how we met or why I was hired. My feelings for you are my own. Relief flooded David's face. So you're not leaving? I'm not leaving, Emma confirmed. But, she turned to Marcus. No more lies. No more manipulation. If we're going to be a family, and I guess we are, then we do it honestly from now on. Marcus nodded, a smile breaking across his face. No more lies. I promise. Good. Emma took a deep breath. Now, since apparently we're doing family dinner, someone should probably tell Mrs. Chun we need to set another place. The tension broke, and David pulled Emma into his arms, holding her tight. Over her shoulder, he looked at his father. He was still angry about the deception, but he was also grateful. As manipulative as his father's plan had been, it had worked. David had found love, real love, and he wasn't going to let it go. Thank you, Dad, he said quietly. Marcus smiled. You're welcome, son. 6 months later, Emma stood in front of a full-length mirror, looking at herself in a wedding dress. It was a simple, elegant gown, nothing too extravagant, because that wasn't Emma's style. But she looked beautiful and she felt beautiful. Rosa Rodriguez stood beside her daughter, tears streaming down her face. Mija, you look like a princess. Thanks, Mommy, Emma said, hugging her mother. There was a knock on the door, and Mrs. Chun poked her head in. It's time, dear. Emma took a deep breath. I'm ready. The wedding was held in the garden of Marcus's estate. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family. Emma had insisted on keeping it intimate, and David had agreed enthusiastically. He didn't need a big production. He just needed Emma. As Emma walked down the aisle on her brother's arm, she saw David waiting for her at the altar. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, but more importantly, he looked happy. Really, genuinely happy. When she reached him and took his hands, he whispered, You look incredible. So do you, she whispered back. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. They'd written their own vows, and when it was David's turn to speak, his voice was thick with emotion. Emma, 6 months ago, I thought I knew who I was. I was a businessman, successful and alone, and I'd convinced myself that was enough. Then you walked into my life and showed me I was wrong. You taught me that success means nothing without someone to share it with. You taught me that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. You taught me how to be human again. He squeezed her hands. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of your love. I promise to see the good in people the way you do. And I promise that I'll never let my work come before our life together. Emma was crying openly now. When it was her turn, she took a shaky breath. David, when I first met you, I thought you were the coldest person I'd ever encountered. Couldn't have been more wrong. Underneath all those walls, I found the warmest, kindest heart. You just needed someone to help you remember it was there. She smiled through her tears. I promise to always be that someone. I promise to remind you that you're more than your work. And I promise to love you, not for your money or your name, but for exactly who you are. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, David kissed Emma like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because to him, she was At the reception, Marcus gave a toast. He stood up, glass in hand, and looked at the happy couple. When my son was 10 years old, he asked me if love was real. His mother had just left, and he was trying to understand why. I told him that love was real, but complicated. That was a coward's answer. He paused, emotion thick in his voice. The truth is, love is the simplest, most powerful force in the world. It doesn't need perfect circumstances or perfect people. It just needs two people willing to choose each other every day, despite their flaws and fears. He raised his glass. Emma, thank you for choosing my son. Thank you for seeing past his walls and finding the good man inside. And David, thank you for finally letting someone in. You two give me hope that love isn't just real, it's worth fighting for. Everyone raised their glasses, and David stood to embrace his father. Thanks for not giving up on me, Dad. Never, Marcus said. I'll never give up on you. 6 months after the wedding, Emma and David sat on the couch in their living room, going through mail. Emma opened an envelope and gasped. What is it? David asked. David, there's something I need to tell you. Something in her tone made him sit up. What is it? Is everything okay? Emma smiled. A huge, beautiful smile that lit up her whole face. Everything is perfect. David, I'm pregnant. For a moment, David couldn't speak. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, tears streaming down his face. We're having a baby? We're having a baby, Emma confirmed. Later that night, as Emma and David lay in bed, Emma's head on his chest, she thought about everything that had happened. From struggling to survive, to meeting a homeless man who wasn't really homeless, to falling in love with a man who'd forgotten how to feel, to now carrying their child. Life is strange, she said softly. Strange good or strange bad? David asked. Strange perfect, Emma replied. David kissed the top of her head. Yeah, it really is. And in that moment, in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, surrounded by love and hope and the promise of new life, both of them knew they'd found something rare and precious. They'd found their home, not in a mansion or a bank account, but in each other. And it had all started with a simple act of kindness, a bottle of water given to a stranger on a hot summer day. Sometimes, Emma thought as she drifted off to sleep, the smallest gestures lead to the greatest blessings. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. See you on the next one. Love you.